Hi everyone, Sarah Noel Wilson here, and I want to talk about a topic that's been simmering. It's been like the ingredients have been put in over the last couple of years, but it's really been simmering over the last couple of weeks, and that is company culture. And I want to be clear, not what you say your culture is, but what it is really. We know that culture is created by what we do, what we don't do, what we say, what we don't say, how we spend our time, how we spend our money, right? And our structures, our policies, how we engage in meetings, all of that influences culture. And one of the things that is becoming abundantly clear is that during this crisis, everything that's extraneous and new is getting stripped away. And what we're seeing is that we are seeing a concentrated core of your culture, your company culture. How you show up, how you communicate, how you can treat your team members is all amplifying what is really at the heart of the organization or not. And if you're watching this, we all know stories that like fall along the continuum, right? I have heard stories and I know of companies that are basically like, I don't care that your kids are at home with you. You need to figure out how to be as productive and put in the same amount of time, right? What I would call the suck it up buttercup culture. Now, if that's your value, don't pretend to be something else. Like just own that then. Like we are about efficiency over empathy. We are about productivity over positivity or whatever the case is, right? Like just own that. There are companies that are, like leaders aren't communicating. They don't feel like they need to have regular meetings with their team members about, like the situation. And so there's these. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we're seeing companies doing incredible things, right? And maybe it's companies that before, maybe struggled with culture, but like this has pushed them to step up in a different way. But we've also seen companies that were just always great, just continuing to be great. We just did a virtual workshop with a client. And one of the things that really struck me was how many comments the team members made just authentically and organically, where they said things like, it's so good to connect and to be vulnerable. And that's what I love about this place is that we can do that. That this wasn't something new for this company. This is who this company was before this, and this is who they are now. And, I'm hearing stories of CEOs being really intentional about either sending out communications regularly of like, hey, like if you're worried about your job, you don't need to be. Some companies are giving bonuses because they know people are under like a different kind of financial hardship. So you cannot fake your culture. Everybody has a really good bullshit meter, right? And we all know that there are lots of companies that have beautiful espoused values, right? Like, yeah, we value collaboration. We value engagement. We value our people. We value innovation. We value, whatever XYZ. And then their behaviors are very different. You cannot fake culture. And when you do, this dissonance is very much felt and creates some distrust, not only from us who are observing, but absolutely within your team members, like within your company. Your team members feel it. We're hearing it, right? So like now is a really good time to examine like who is it that we say we are and who is it that we're really, and do we want to close that gap, right? Because you always have a choice, right? And to be really honest, and I would challenge you to do a fearless audit of like, how are we showing up in ways during this that are not reinforcing the very things we say we stand for? And what are the things we need to amplify that again are reinforcing the things we say we stand for? I'm exhausted hearing lip service and hearing from leaders who's like, yeah, no, we totally value high trusting relationships. And then they go and they do something that like completely not only contradicts that, but destroys that as ever being a possibility, right? And it's so clear during this crisis Like the truth of the culture is coming out. And the truth of your culture is going to create a ripple effect far beyond this. I mean, one of the things that I'm hearing consistently amongst just like professionals and HR professionals, and it's something I'm going to explore with companies, is like when I start to explore culture, I'm going to ask them, like, talk to me about what you did during the COVID crisis. Like, how did you show up? What adjustments did you make? What adaptations did you make? How did you support your team members? This really beautiful story was one of our clients was talking about how her CEO, how he was on a call and I think it was his 2-year-old child came in and he just put him on his lap and he continued the call. That sends a really strong message of culture. It sends a strong message of what do we value, what do we stand for, and what's in our heart as an organization. And again, like if high efficiency, like competitive, winner takes all mentality is your culture, I'm not saying that's bad. Own it. So that way people who are working for you can like make sure they know that's what they're signing up for. But don't be a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? So what are some of the things we can do? I think as leaders now, again, like this whole time is essentially like this incredible values exploration we're going through. I really want to challenge you as people who are in positions of power and authority to realize that your voice will be heard differently. What you do, how you show up will have a significant impact in how your team members respond, how safe they feel, how supported they feel. So a couple of things you can think about. One, just do a fearless audit for yourself. If you say this is important to you, I want you to be really transparent. What are the things I'm doing that's actually getting in the way of that? Like you got to tell on yourself or else you're not going to see it. And if you say I've got it all figured out, I'm going to call bullshit on that. Because like I'm really strong values. I have like clarity. I try to be really intentional. And there are times when I mess up. And there are times when I get into old patterns of habits. And there are times when I'm doing things unintentionally that are having that negative impact. So if you are not finding something, you are not looking deep enough. That is just my challenge to you. And then I want you to be really intentional about how you can show up. If making sure that your team members feel supported, don't assume they know that. You need to show them. They need to hear it. They need to see it. They need to feel it. If collaboration is important, what are you doing to ensure that those opportunities are happening in more meaningful ways now? So I just like to sum this up, to wrap up my little rant. Just gets under my skin sometimes. And you know why? It's because the people who are in positions of power have so much influence. And I think don't always realize that and don't take ownership for it. And there's just nothing like, it's just exhausting to me when I hear companies say, we value this, and then they treat their team members really horribly. I just want to share a couple other like examples of here's like what a good culture, like here's what it looks like, right? Consistency of culture. I think of the company Gravitate. Dan Price is the CEO. And this is the company that a couple years ago made headlines because he gave up his like multi-million-dollar salary so that everyone could have a living wage. That's a pretty bold statement about what he values as a leader. Well, this crisis has obviously impacted him and his company dramatically. And so instead of doing the typical like leadership team goes off and then they're going to like announce layoffs and do whatever to adjust for the fact that their revenue is like down significantly. And I'm not talking like a little bit, like significant. I want to say it was like a third or something. They talked to their team members and said, here's what we're facing. Let's think of some ideas. And what the company came up with is that they created this robust furlough program that the company's designed, or like the employees like helped influence and design. People who had more financial stability volunteered to take more furlough time. So the people who had less financial stability could stay, right? And there are just other changes made. You can see how like that tells you a lot about their culture. So whatever it is you say, my challenge to you is make sure that what you're doing, not doing, saying, not saying aligns with that. Because anything Anything that's like different than that, if there's a gap here, people will see it, they will know it, and they are far less likely to trust you because of it. So that's your food for thought today. I don't even know how to end this. I'm just like, here's how we'll end it. Culture is a choice. How you choose to show up influences the culture. Culture doesn't just happen. I mean, it does happen, but we can make it a choice. And so my challenge to you is, are you showing up in a way that creates the culture you want? Bye, everyone.